My name is Graham Thomas. I'm one of our deputy directors here at tnAchieves, and tell you a couple real quick kind of goals of what we're doing. And certainly you can see that you have access to your cameras and your mics as we're going through this presentation today. Please stop me and ask any questions that you have or comments, feedback. You can also, if you'd rather save them till the end, that's fine also, but I'm happy to take them as we're going through. When we launched Tennessee Promise in 2014, it was written into the legislation that every county mayor or county executive appoint a group that we call a local advisory council, really to do a couple of things. First, to open some doors, help us navigate the county. I had been to Sumner County before, but I wouldn't say that we were intimately familiar with it, to help us guide people help us find people that can support our program. And the second thing is to provide a level of accountability that we would report back to every single year, an update on our progress, our successes, and our struggles. And you're going to see all of that in this presentation today. So always want to be really transparent to our stakeholders. We figured, as we were still kind of navigating the ever-changing world that seems to be this pandemic, that this year the best option was to go virtual. And so we invited everyone, our mentors, our external stakeholders, our business partners. If you have been a part of tnAchieves at all over the last few years, we went ahead and cast a pretty wide net. So we are excited that you are here, and I will jump in. And again, as we're going through this, feel free to stop me and ask questions. Quick reminder about who we are. tnAchieves is a 501c3 nonprofit that partners with the state to operate Tennessee Promise in 90 of our state's 95 counties. We launched in 2008 in Knoxville. And since then, we have worked with more than 440,000 students, 71,000 volunteer mentors, annually working with 600 plus high schools and 67 colleges across the state of Tennessee. This next slide shows what we call the core components of tnAchieves. The first three have really been with us since this idea since the program was just an idea on a whiteboard. I got a message there to you. Someone can't hear me. Everyone hear me okay? Dalton, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through for everybody, okay. I believe.
Okay. All right, just making sure. So Tennessee Promise, a last dollar scholarship that allows students in Tennessee to attend our 13 community colleges, our 27 Tennessee colleges of applied technology, as well as 27, as it just so happens to work out, four-year universities, tuition free. Each student in the 90 counties where we work is paired with a volunteer mentor that is checking in, providing guidance while students are transitioning from high school to college. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And then our students get back 8 hours of community service every semester they receive the scholarship. In the early days, the scholarship was funded privately by the business community in Knoxville. We still had the volunteer mentors making sure our students were successful. And so it was really important to us that our students continued that spirit of giving back, and it remains an important component of our program today. Talk a little bit more about it in a few minutes as well. We have added a couple of components that we think are really essential to the work we do. The first of which is our summer programming. We operate 2 programs over the course of the summer. The first is the Summer Bridge program. It is operated at all 13 community colleges, designed to prepare students to be in college more academically prepared. It is for students that are not testing into college level coursework in either math, reading, or writing, at least one of those subjects. They come, they give up 3 weeks of their summer, they come 3 hours a day, do an hour of reading, writing, and math. And at the end, they take the placement test to see if they're testing into college level coursework. This year, our Summer Bridge program boasts an impressive 89% success rate. 89% of the students that went through the Summer Bridge program either tested into college level coursework or improved their test scores. The second program that we run is called Summer Institute. It is operated in the urban core of Memphis. We had 29 students participate in that program this year. It is kind of a bridge program on steroids. It is 6 weeks long. It's about 7 hours a day, and it is actually credit bearing. Students that participate in Summer Institute require all 3 remedial courses, reading, writing, and math, Along with those courses, they take the co-requisite model that TBR has implemented, and they can earn up to 9 hours of college credit. 29 students participated this year. Really excited to report that we had a 100% success rate. All 29 students completed their learning support classes and earned 9 hours of college credit. So students that were going to be a full semester behind, now starting a full semester ahead. So really excited about that. And then finally here you see the Tennessee Achieves complete coaching model. What we have identified over the first 7 years of Tennessee Promise is that unfortunately, even though we've made college tuition free, our low income students in Tennessee still don't go to college at rates as high as their peers. And when they go, they don't graduate at rates as high as their peers. We have begun a coaching program that essentially picks up where the mentoring leaves off. Our coaches are reaching out, getting to know these students, coaching them through college, and our most at-risk population is now outperforming the general Tennessee Achieves population in terms of fall-to-fall retention. Really good early success there. We don't have graduation data yet, but it's looking promising, and we will share it once we do. Continue to look at our reach here. I mentioned we were operating in 90 counties, 74 of which are considered rural counties. 35 are considered at risk or distressed by the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, working in more than 601 high schools in those 90 counties. That represents every public, private high school and homeschool cooperative. Also working with 67 colleges across Tennessee. And then you see a breakdown of exactly where our students are going. 79% exercise the community college option. The last 20%, 21%, pretty evenly split between the TCATs and the 4-year college route. Another slide here that kind of exemplifies the scope of our work. We have more than 60,000 high school seniors that we are working with annually. When you couple that with the college students that we're working with, we work with more than 90,000 students each and every year. This next line really, for those of us that have been here since 2008, I kind of pinch myself sometimes when I see these data points. 89% of all high school seniors in Tennessee come through the Tennessee Achieves program. When you add in the work that the Ayers Foundation is doing in their 5 counties, well over 90% of seniors in Tennessee apply for Tennessee Promise. 89% though of all seniors in Tennessee come through Tennessee Achieves. 78% of the first-time freshmen at Tennessee's community colleges are Tennessee Achieves students. And a number that we're really proud of, 86% of all Tennessee community college graduates have come through our program. So operating at a very large, wide scope here, will tell you it is what motivates us, what we get to wake up excited to do every day, is to continue to provide opportunities and move the needle for these students. This next line has a little bit of demographic data here. 56% of our students are eligible for the federal Pell Grant, which means they come from low-income households. 40% self-report as first-generation college students. A couple of kind of points on this specific 40% first-gen number. One, there's not a great definition of what exactly a first-generation college student is. Two, it's self-reported on the FAFSA. When you're looking at the Tennessee landscape, 44% of adults in Tennessee have a post-secondary credential. Only 40% of the next generation reporting that they're first generation. That seems low to me. I think that number skews a little bit low. I think we're probably higher than that, but that's what they're telling us, again, on their federal financial aid paperwork. This last data point on this line here, 51% of our students are majoring in either a health or STEM related field. There's a huge nursing shortage in Tennessee. 27% of our students are in a health field. That's extremely exciting. The STEM fields are all in demand. I think what is the most exciting about this data point is that these are our most in-demand careers in Tennessee, which means our students are going to go, they're going to get a credential that is desirable to employers, and they're going to find meaningful employment. So really positive stat there. And then at the bottom, you can see some of the costs of these two programs. Tennessee Promise, just the scholarship piece, $32 million a year, comes out to about $1,100 per student. We operate on a budget of about $2.5 million, the vast majority of which is privately funded. Let's take a look at some of our local Sumner County data here. First up is the FAFSA filing rate. This is a pretty large measure of our program. Statewide, 86% of students in Tennessee that applied for Tennessee Promise with tnAchieves filed a FAFSA. Last year, we were at 90. We went backwards a little bit. I think it is a direct reflection of the fact that COVID hit our schools. Our two largest school districts in Tennessee, being Nashville and Memphis, were not in school. The seniors were not in school during FAFSA filing season. We went backwards there. Sumner County coming in right at about the state average. Would certainly love to get you up over 90. That's our goal everywhere. Again, challenges last year, students being in and out of school, some virtual. Our school counselors do an amazing job identifying students that need help with the FAFSA, and they just weren't able to do that with students that were online this year. So some challenges there, but we'll continue to work to get that number back up to 90%. And then community service, 3.4 million hours completed by students in the tnAchieves program since our program began. Randy Boyd, who is our board chairman, says that makes us the largest community service organization in Tennessee. We're not sure if that is accurate. No one has raised their hand to say it's not. So we're running with it for right now. Someone tells us otherwise, we'll stop, but you see 105,000 of those hours completed locally in Sumner County. So hopefully you're seeing that on the Vol State campus. Hopefully you're seeing it in your schools, work with your nonprofits. While not the goal of our program, almost 3.4 million hours, a number that we're really proud of. Our next slide here shows your local student progress up against the state data. And you're going to see that it's really positive. The application, enrolled, and retention numbers from the high school class of 2019. So 2,200 students applied, 765 of them enrolled using Tennessee Promise. 65% of them that began their freshman year came back their sophomore year. See, it's a tick or two below the state average. No real huge red flags there, especially when you look at the next row and you see that your 3-year graduation rate is coming in a little bit higher than the state average. That is excellent news. I think that is a testament to the great work that Vol State is doing and our TCAPs are doing across the state. I think it's also extremely beneficial for your students to have a community college in their backyard. Where we really see some hits in this number are our communities that aren't close to a college campus, and your students are very close to a college campus, which I think really makes a huge difference in alleviating some of those transportation issues that we see across the state of Tennessee, specifically in our rural counties. Statewide, let's look at some outcomes. 53% of all students that begin at a community college, Tennessee Promise or otherwise, start their freshman year, come back their sophomore year. tnAchieves students at our eligible institutions across Tennessee are at a 67% fall-to-fall retention rate, and tnAchieves students that go to college anywhere are at a 74%. This number includes students that apply for Tennessee Promise, get a mentor from tnAchieves, get FAFSA help from tnAchieves, go on to MTSU, TSU, Austin P, UT, Tennessee Tech, wherever it might be, but they still receive some type of support from our program, just not the financial support. Our 6-year graduation rate for students is 51% compared to 35% of students that begin at a community college. You know, it is tough to celebrate 51%, but when we began this program in 2008, the community college 3-year graduation rate was 14%. tnAchieves 3-year graduation rate is 31 at the community college and 51. A couple of categories of students fall into this 51. These are your students that go to Vol State, earn an associate's degree and go to work, or maybe they transfer. These are also your students that go to Vol State for, let's say, a year, knock out those core classes, and then transfer on to a 4-year university. They don't get the associate's degree, but they do ultimately earn a bachelor's degree. What are we doing to continue to impact these outcomes? First, we talked about our summer programs earlier. While the success rate is really high in the program design, which is to prepare students for college, students that participate in those programs are more successful once they begin, increasing their retention rate by 34%. Students in our coaching model that I talked about earlier increase their first year retention by 23%. And we have a brand new program called Knox Promise. We are really excited about this program. Increased first year retention by 42%. This is funded with a private donation from the Haslam family in Knoxville that allows us to do two things. First, every single student is given a coach. So in the complete model, only our low income students get a coach. In Knox Promise, every student gets a coach regardless of their income. Second thing it allows us to do is we have money to create what we call completion grant funding. Probably more common term is emergency grant funding, but we were able to pay for students' books. We are able to pay for their travel, gas cards. We figured out a way that we can make sure they only Uber from home to campus. We can pay for those. For food insecure students, we can pay their grocery bills. We have a homeless student in Knoxville. Several we've paid their transitional housing. We pay utility bills for students. Most of these students go to Pellissippi State Community College, the local community college in Knoxville. And what Pellissippi has told us is that this cohort of students, the Knox Promise cohort, through the pandemic has been their most successful, their highest retained population. Really promising results there. This year, our General Assembly, who has been extremely supportive of our program and so grateful for their support over the last 7 years, has funded a pilot program. It's $1 million over 4 years, $250,000 a year that we can offer completion grants across the state. So any of your students that qualify, every student in Tennessee that qualifies, low income students based on their FAFSA information, got an email from us Monday letting them know that we can pay for these things. We received one, Chrissy, our executive director, sent one over this morning. A student wrote that she didn't have any food, and literally she said, my fridge is empty. We're gonna help pay for those grocery bills. We had a student earlier this week that sent in one that said that her mom has recently started dating a guy and they have started abusing alcohol and drugs. She has moved out of the house. She's staying with a friend, but she doesn't have money to drive to and from campus every day. We're going to pay for that student's gas. We really think that this is the next iteration of our work. If we can improve outcomes with this pilot program, we really think we can work with our General Assembly to expand this program across the state, hopefully provide more coaching, provide more of these completion grants. So that is, we will keep you updated on our progress there, but we really think we can make some differences with the program like Knox Promise across the state. Up until this point in the presentation, it's mostly good news, right? And then this slide comes, I get a lump in my throat, my heart sinks a little bit. 2015, you see here, was the first year of Tennessee Promise. We increased the college going rate by 4.6%. Steady uptick in our college going rate for a couple of years, plateaued a little bit in 18 and 19, COVID hit, and we lost it all. All the gains that we made in 2015 washed away in 2020. What it looks like on a statewide perspective for the class of 2021, this current class, is we're going to stay at about this 57% number. And that's a very specific number, but somewhere in that mid to high 50s range, based on enrollments at our colleges right now, it doesn't look like we're improving. You can see in Sumner County that took a pretty big hit, 6.1%. So actually even slightly worse than the 5% that the state took. COVID was a tough year. We're going to continue to dig in on this. One of our partners, the president at Pellissippi State Community College in Knoxville, says there's no such thing as an educational emergency. Probably true, but if there is, this is it. And we're seeing it in Tennessee. We're seeing it across the country, and we need your help. So what can you do to help us? First, we need more mentors. We need 9,000 across the state year after year. This is our best resource for students as they're transitioning from high school to college. Our mentors do three things. One, they serve as a task manager, making sure students are meeting their deadlines, submitting community service hours, completing admissions files, making progress towards college while remaining eligible for the scholarship. Two, they're that trusted family resource they can reach out to when they have questions, when they don't know what the next step is, when they get a letter from financial aid and they don't know what it means. Finally, the piece I think is the most important. I certainly believe it is the most important as we continue to navigate fairly uncertain times, to just say, hey, you know what? It's a weird time. and it's tricky and it's going to get hard, but I'm going to go on this journey. We can do this together. I think also to have those really honest conversations to say that anyone who's ever been to college before struggles at some point in time, right? Like, I was a terrible math student. The math class was hard for me. Other students struggle writing papers. We have students that are balancing 40 hours of work and a full-time class load. We have students that have all kinds of things that are going on in their personal life. I met a student in Roane State this year at the Summer Bridge program who has a 3-year-old and is working 30 hours a week and is going to go to college full-time. I mean, what an inspiration, but how many challenges can you think of for students like that? And so to have someone in your corner just to say, like, you can do this, oftentimes I think is the most important. Mentoring in 2022 is going to look different than it looked in 2021, which has looked significantly different than the first 12 years of our program. If you mentored with us this year, you know that we invested in an online platform called tnAchieves Connect that allows you to meet with your students virtually. It also allows you a layer of tracking your students we've never had before. When the students applied for college, you knew as soon as we did. When they enrolled full-time, it was in Connect. When they submitted their community service hours, it populated in there. So you were able to track them in real time, just like we were. Connect is going to stay with us for everyone for next year. We surveyed our current mentors. 2/3 of them told us that they want to have an in-person option for next year. If you mentored with us previous to this year, you remember those really crowded. I've been to Hendersonville High School a million times for these meetings. It's packed. It's standing room only. It's kind of hot. It's a little sweaty in there. We're not going back to that. But what we are going to offer, hoping to utilize college campuses for this, is what we call a tnAchieves open house. We're going to reserve a 3 or 4 hour block of time. You'll be able to invite your students to come, meet with them, sit down with them, get to know them. A tnAchieves staff member will be there to answer questions. No formal presentation, and you can get to know them. We're also hoping that our college partners will provide staff there, computers to apply, staff to check where they are in the admissions process. Let's knock out all the things that we can in a one-stop shop. We're also going to encourage mentors to meet with students on their own. We've never really done that before. We know that it happens. Randy takes his students to pizza every year. We had a mentor this past year who pretty much operated her own summer bridge program in her front yard. She pulled a table out under a big shade tree. Student came. She basically tutored the student to take the placement exam and kind of operated, work on it, her own little personal summer bridge program, all while making sure that this remains a 1 hour a month, 12 hour a year time commitment. Locally, we need 335 mentors in Sumner County. I would be extremely remiss if I did not thank Dr. Faulkner and his team at Vol State. We do a community college mentor challenge every year. Vol State has won it 3 or 4 years in a row now. They did it again, always about 100 Vol State employees serving as mentors, but we need to make sure, especially as we're continuing to navigate what life in this pandemic looks like, these 335 people, to make sure we're supporting students locally. I really do think it's going to be the difference maker, making sure we can get that college going right back where it needs to be. If you've not mentored with us before and you would like to, the website is here, tnAchieves.org/mentors. Go on, complete the application. Returning mentors, you can go renew your application or just reply to an email. We'll get you back in the system. Some other things we could use your help with is getting connected in your community. Are you involved with an organization like a Rotary Club or a Kiwanis Club? We'd love to come and visit. Love to come to chamber meetings. Anywhere there's an active group of people, we're happy to come tell the story. We can also provide you with newsletter or email content. If you shoot us an email at this address here, mentors@tnAchieves.org, we can send you content that you can blast out to your friends, family, coworkers, church members. Stick it into a newsletter somewhere. You can add your own personal testimony if you like, but anything we could do to find these 335 people, we would certainly love to do. And then finally, the Promise application is open for students. If you know a family that has a senior, as you can see earlier, our school counselors do an amazing job of presenting this opportunity to seniors, but never hurts to provide an additional nudge. Here you can see a real quick student story, as well as my contact information. If you ever have questions, comments, feedback for us, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. It's my personal cell phone number. You can always get a hold of me there, as well as my email. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone. And if you have questions, comments, feedback, would love to hear them and take them.
Yeah, Graham, Mike Stark here. I hope this is coming through okay, because I've had some microphone issues. Okay,
You're loud and clear.
perfect. Yeah, excellent presentation. I can tell you've done this a couple of times.
My third one today.
What do you think the reason is that people are not returning to school or graduating on time? Is it financial? Are they financial issues?
So I will tell you what we are hearing anecdotally. We don't have the data on it yet. We will, and we'll track it the best that we can. One of the things that we're hearing specific to our current time from the colleges and from our coaches is that a lot of students are taking these available jobs. Restaurants are hiring at a higher wage than they ever have before. Jobs are available that they are qualified to take. And I understand the short-term gain for those students. I think long-term, the money that they're making right now at 18, 19 years old is probably great. When you're 27, 28, 29 and you have a family, it's probably not going to be so great. So we are hearing from colleges that they're losing students to the workforce right now. And our coaches that are working with students are hearing that.
Do you think that also is one of the reasons that the college going rate that you said has dropped off, because kids are taking jobs that may have to help support family or themselves?
That the other thing that we're hearing from our high school students, specifically with last year's class, was that they were just tired of the online classes. They wanted a break from it. So they were virtual last year, and then college was virtual, and they didn't want to do that again. Now, the class of 2020, if they remained eligible for Tennessee Promise, were eligible to use it this year. So they were allowed to take a year off, which has never happened before, but we had about 500 students that went back through the process with us that were eligible to start college this week. Classes started. We don't know how many of them have started yet. We'll know here in a few weeks. Hopefully all 500 of them. I doubt that's the case, but hopefully a big chunk of those, which will help us, that'll be a small gain, not a huge gain, but sounds like they had some online fatigue. The other interesting thing that we're hearing from the colleges is that I've heard from Dyersburg and Ball, both of their presidents, that students have been surveyed and that they want in-person classes. So both of those two colleges specifically loaded up on in-person classes, and then students registered for online classes at a much higher percentage than expected. So those two data points are telling us very opposite things. They're telling us they want to be in person, but then they're registering online. And I don't know if that's because the pandemic seems to unfortunately be moving in the wrong direction, and there's just some anxiety about that. I don't know the reason, but we're getting a little bit of conflicting data on the students for this specific term.
Probably the kids went online. The mom and dad said no, they're not.
I had some feedback. Now I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Probably the kids went in person, and moms and dads said no, you're not.
Right. That could be it too.
I think moms and dads have the anxiety, not the kids.
Yeah.
This is Judy Jones, and I have a comment as well and a question. And is that what I found with the students I had assigned to me was that they did seem to be tired of doing everything online. I mean, I thought Connect I think it's a wonderful application, not only in its features, but its ease and learning and using, but they just really didn't, they seemed to be really, lackadaisical about it, just hesitant or just didn't get around to getting online like I expected them to. The question I have is, I may have misunderstood you, but when you were talking about the numbers and how much money was being provided for the students, you also made a statement about providing more than just money. And maybe that's what you meant by complete when you were talking about it later, or some of the, the mentoring we provide. but is there anything else that's non-financial that Tennessee Achieves is doing?
For our students. So all those of you that are mentors. So the mentor program for us is one of our largest expenses in the program. So they're getting the mentor, which is not a financial benefit. They have access to those summer programs, which are free. All of our students are assigned a coach once they're in college. We are just only proactively reaching out to the most at risk. But when we send out, like if you're a mentor, we send you out those weekly emails and sometimes text messages. When you reply to those come back to Tyler on our team, to a real human who then reads them and responds to you. None of those responses are auto-generated. So even if it's a simple like yes or no, he has read that and responded to you. Same thing with all of our students. Each student in our system is assigned to a coach. So when they reply to a text message or they reply to an email, a real person on the other end gets those and then responds accordingly or picks up the phone and calls if needed. So we're supporting them in a lot of non-financial ways. The financial component is no doubt what draws them to us, right? Free college, that's why they sign up. But all the non-financial supports, everything points back to the work that we're doing there. That's really the difference maker for most of them.
So someone who applies then ends up not being eligible for Tennessee Promise money. There's no follow-up with them.
Yeah, so if a student, like about half of our students receive a Pell Grant, you saw that slide earlier, which means they're not receiving any dollars from Tennessee Promise. They're all being coached. They're not receiving, if they get a full Pell Grant, they have a coach proactively reaching out to them. Also, that financial aid amount changes every year. So they may have a part of a Pell Grant and the Tennessee Hope Scholarship, and maybe their freshman year, we don't pay anything for them. But unfortunately, about half of our students lose the Hope Scholarship the first year, statewide. That's not just a Tennessee Promise, but statewide. That can create a gap. We'll pay their sophomore year. So the federal Pell Grant formula is long and complicated, and if they have a sibling who's in college and then isn't in college, that can change their amount, or a parent that's in college and then isn't in college. There's a lot of things that can change on this dollar amount. So we always encourage them to hang with us because we will pay their sophomore year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Graham, Mike Stark here. Another question. I know that the completion coach program has had really good success. And I know that these are staff positions. These are not volunteer positions.
Right.
Can you explain, if you have a time, a little bit more detail, what they actually do that's over and above what the mentors do?
Yeah, Dalton, you want to come on? So Dalton is here in the background working with me. Dalton is one of our complete coaches. You want to fill that one?
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much our work as complete coaches, we work alongside kind of what the mentors work with. So the students reach out to their mentors, they have the conversations, the meetings, the text messages, and they also get the support from us. So for me specifically, I work in the Roane State service area. And so any county where there's a Roane State campus and a few others around that area, I work with. The students typically reach out to me with more of the questions about who do I need to go talk to about financial aid? Where do I need to go for this resource? A lot of kind of process questions that they don't necessarily know how to ask at their school, or they're too afraid to ask at their school, but they know that they hear proactively from us. And so they'll reach out to us before they'll ever connect with anybody at their school. And so a lot of what they hear from their mentor and from us is a lot of the same thing. But when we interact with the students, they just know that they'll hear from us, proactively more often than, maybe with a mentor around certain areas of their school.
Yeah, that sounds great. In a way, it's a little disappointing. Are you saying that there are many mentors that don't respond to their students, and so they have to turn to you? It's another avenue, and that the mentors aren't living up to what our responsibilities are?
So I would say with that, a lot of the students that I've worked with personally, a lot of their questions they do direct to their mentors, and the mentors, in my experience, have been very responsive with their students. I won't deny that there are some mentors that they have no communication with their students. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to anyone. But for the students that aren't able to connect with their mentors, that's when they typically reach out to us a little bit more frequently, knowing that they have not heard from their mentors. But I will say, as far as what I've seen over my 2 or so years working with students in the Roane State service area, a lot of the times I feel like I communicate with the students alongside a mentor, and we kind of have that capability to work back and forth. And we as coaches also have direct lines of communications with the mentors that work with those students. We can see who the students are paired up with. And whenever we have a question bounce from a mentor, we can communicate that with them and kind of relay that information through the mentor or directly to the student.
So as I understand it, that you all identify who you think that students would be at higher risk, and then assign them a coach, and then try to make that connection between the student and the coach.
Yes, sir. So for me in the Roane State service area, I work with my complete target group, and those are students that fall into the zero expected family contribution and first generation categories, more so focused on that zero EFC. And those students are who we've identified for that group. And so we believe that it is crucial to reach those students as often as we can in whatever different avenue that we can really truly reach them through, whether it be through Connect with Us, whether it be through a phone call, text message. And we try to make sure that they are accompanied every step of the way, because we know that the roadblocks that they may face are quite different than those who have that higher EFC and who fall outside of that first generation category.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Graham, you commented earlier about the Summer Institute in the Memphis area having 100% success rate. For clarity, was that 100% success rate for those that actually tested out of the learning support range into the college level range, or just 100% in that they improved their scores?
So the Summer Institute is actually credit bearing, a little different than the Bridge program. So that is all 29 of those students completed all 9 hours of their learning support classes and earned 9 hours of college credit. So we've operated this program 3 or 4 years now. And every single year that we've operated, all the students have at least completed their learning support. Typically about 2/3, 75% of them will earn at least 6 hours of college credit. This is our first year that it was a full-blown 100% earned every possible credit that they could across the board. A couple of years ago, so we didn't run the program last year for the obvious reasons. We couldn't get them on campus. Campuses were closed. But a couple of years ago, we had about 35 or so students in that program. All 35 of them actually began college that fall, and all 35 of them came back in the spring. So you don't see a 100% retention rate anywhere, certainly not inner city Memphis. So it's a program that is showing a lot of promise. We've tried to take it to Nashville and Knoxville and just haven't had students take us up on it. This year was our Knoxville attempt. And again, it was just hard. We couldn't get in front of students. So that one probably is, there's outlying factors there, but it's also Southwest, the local community college there, does a really wonderful job with their recruiters and their admissions folks. They go into the schools. We target about 20 inner city Memphis schools, and they go in and just really work to identify the students that we're looking to serve. About 90% of those students qualify for a Pell Grant, so low income, and 100% of them identify as a minority population. And so our partners at Southwest do a really good job there helping to identify those students.
Well, Graham, instead of bringing it to Nashville, is at some point in time potentially the Summer Institute programming designed to replace the Summer Bridge? And instead of maybe just Nashville, like the Davidson County area, could it be brought to Sumner County and identify those individuals? And also previously, combined with that, maybe a couple of summers ago, there was a first-year experience course that Vol State offered that the Tennessee Achieves program paid for students to get that credit. Could that potentially be involved with it, like along maybe instead of 6 weeks, 8 weeks or 9 weeks, and that first-year experience course incorporated, and then they're earning almost an entire semester fully, like a full-time credit load during that summertime, without utilizing the 5 semesters of Tennessee Achieves funding? And I say that simply because I know I'm throwing a lot in here on this,
No, that's okay.
but if the students are health sciences or STEM majors, if they are not college level starting out, they are behind and they're not necessarily going to have the funding to finish. And if they're doing a health science program that's selective admissions and are not accepted right away, then they're delayed a whole year potentially for applying again, and then repeating coursework as well. And so, if it were possible to have that credit bearing program in the summer for those that need that, plus incorporating like the first year experience and it not take away from the 5 semesters, that would be incredible.
Yeah. So let me try to answer. If I miss something, just tell me. So the Institute does not necessarily replace Bridge. So we at Southwest, we have both. We have students that are willing to take the full-blown Institute course. It has historically been a 10-week program. We shrunk that down this year to start later in the summer again to try to give the pandemic more time to like run its course. And of course, we didn't know that it was going to start trending back up. But it has historically been a 10-week program. And so we operate both. The difference in the two is that obviously the credit bearing versus the taking the test, 3 weeks versus 6 weeks or 10 weeks. Bridge students can participate if they only need one of the subjects. Institute students are currently required to need all 3. Just the way that the program is run and the way that we use the co-requisite model, that's what makes the most sense currently. We are open to expanding it. The reason I think we have originally identified Knoxville and Nashville is because it's been an inner city program. And so we try to identify places that have a larger inner city population, but these are decisions made above me. This goes above my level, but I would imagine that we'd be willing to try something like this and at another college. I don't honestly know why we wouldn't. So I do think there's some opportunity there. The first year experience course that Tennessee Promise paid for last year kind of replaced the Bridge program because we couldn't run it. We couldn't run the on campus. Again, campuses weren't open. So I don't know how we could incorporate that. I think that we love the first year experience program. That is part of the 9 hours of college credit that students in Institute receive. Is that first year seminar or first year experience? What I think each college calls it something different. But again, in terms of using Tennessee Promise dollars, like we don't make the rules on what Tennessee Promise dollars can and can't be spent on. Tennessee Promise dollars are not spent on Institute. Those students actually have to go back and file the previous year's FAFSA, and the Pell Grant pays for the vast majority of those students to take that course. And then there is some funding from the Higher Education Commission that pays the rest, but it's not actual Promise dollars. I hope that answered them. At least if there's anything else, let me know.
Well, I have several questions, but I don't want to take away from someone else that has another one.
Thank you. You may just keep going.
All right. How many complete coaches do you all have right now?
Ooh, that is our staff has grown so much in the last, honestly, over the last few months. Dalton, help me out here. 17-ish. Looks like he maybe pulled up the org chart here.
Yeah, sorry, I was pulling up the org chart. I believe it's 17.
We've also just moved a few of our complete coaches into a new role, brand new program that we are starting, and they're called transfer coaches. So we get data from our students that about 85% of our community college students want to transfer to a 4-year university. Statewide, only about 14 or 15% do. In our program, it's closer to like 25, but they're really going to take a deep dive on students as they're ending their community college careers, helping them transfer on to a 4-year university, see if we can drive some of those numbers up.
Would be maybe a goal for Tennessee Achieves to have a completion coach or a complete coach for maybe each county or that you all serve. Is that in the talks?
So to do the Knox Promise program, which is every student in Knoxville getting a complete coach, there's 4. So we probably don't need one for every county, especially our more rural counties, right? That, like I think with a county like Pickett County that graduates 40 students, probably 10 or 12 of which use Promise. we can be more efficient than that, probably. Ideally, to go statewide with the Knox Promise model, which means every student in Tennessee get a coach and the completion grants. We're estimating it would cost about $5.5 million to essentially take that Knox Promise program across the state. I don't know that we've projected. I'm sure we have projected out exactly how many new hires that would be, but I don't know it right off the top of my head.
Right. Right. And some of them don't necessarily need that complete coach, but so I would not have expected that for sure. Just that maybe at-risk ones. Do the coaches work with them at the high school level before they get to college, or is it only when they're in college?
So the proactive, like reaching out piece of the program is once they start college. Again, every student in our system is assigned a coach. So Dalton, for example, has that Roane State service area. So we don't currently have a high school class, but once this 2022 class gets through the application, right, in November, every student at one of those Roane State Community Service area high schools would be assigned to Dalton. So when they reach out, reply to the emails, reply to text, they all come to one person. So that way that Dalton is starting to build a relationship with them prior to their college experience. It's just not on the proactive side yet.
Do you have a name for our Sumner County one? For the Ball State area?
I'm trying to think of who it is. We've shuffled our organization around so much lately. Do you know who it is, Dalton? It's Galley, right?
Yeah, I believe it's Galilea.
It is. It's Galley. Her name is Galilea Villa. What's her last name?
Villagrana, I believe.
Yeah, I can get you in contact with her though, if you would like.
And last but not least, do you all promote the TRIO program to the students that are coming to the Summer Institute and other places? Simply because if they're already identified as that low income, that would be a qualifier for a TRIO program to get the extra assistance at the college level.
Don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that for our coaches in places where those programs are robust, probably have that as a resource. They have a resource bank of opportunities available for students in their specific service area. So I would say it's probably dependent on the campuses that have those programs. And awesome. Cool. Thanks, Amanda. Anybody else? All right. Well, again, we appreciate y'all being here. We've said it for years that our program really is only as successful as the communities that we serve allow us to be. And Sumner County has certainly been extremely supportive of the work that we do. And seventh class Tennessee Promise students started Monday. We're getting the 8th class in the hopper right now and excited about the next year, and appreciate everything you do for us. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Nice job, Graham. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.